Legislation in our pre-meeting conference dated March 15th, 2023. We started from 1 and now we're up to 39. Is that correct, clerk?
Correct.
And deputy clerk, are we correct on that, on those numbers?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's start with the easy ones and we'll get to the hard ones. First one up is a resolution for Commissioner Deeds for David Testa. Any opposed? Okay, so the next piece. Next piece is a transfer for E&A. Where our budget director is kind enough to be here for this transfer. Would you kind enough to, it's the $40,000 one, Parks and Maintenance Engineering.
The Bellew Creek.
Parks and Maintenance and Engineering, you pulled 40,000 out of each. Oh, no, I'm sorry, you went from Parks,
Some
Maintenance
parks to contractual. For Bellew Creek.
So Blue Creek came in over budget by a lot. So I've been scrambling to find the capital funds that qualify for it. But the engineering department did not include engineering services when they went to put this out for bid. And we had engineering services, but that's how we knew what we were putting out to bid. They did the specs. So those expenses were paid by engineering through their contractual account. There was no other place for me to take them. And so here we are at the end of the year, and I'm trying to cover those things that have been expended.
Okay. Any questions on number 2? Okay, discussion number 2 is closed. Let's go to number 3. Once again, Heather, please explain number 3. It's a software transfer.
So last year, when the controller's office did their budget, they put in for software. We actually went to a cloud-based system. You may recall, Councilperson Testa had an issue last week when she went in to look at the accounts. No one has looked at the accounts in some time.
You guys want some cookies?
Judge, hold on. See, tell me, we got the meeting going?
And so that amount for software was unnecessary. Also, likewise, Annie Plano, who retired mid-year, came back part-time.
Okay.
And so that was an additional expense. She actually manages our whole general ledger and our audit. And so that's what the other side of the expense is for.
So it's a part-time labor. All right,
Yes.
so- Go ahead, I'm sorry, Celeste, you got a question?
Nope.
Any additional questions? Discussion's closed on piece ordinance number 3. We're on the fire department amending the complement. Number 4, do we have chief here, deputy chief?
I can explain this.
Okay, go ahead, right ahead.
We've had several retirements, or impending retirements, and our fire school is about to begin in the next couple of months. If we don't fill these positions, we know that they're definite retirements. If we don't get those additional recruits into that school now, we won't have them, and summer is our highest time for fires. And so what we wanted to do, this, I believe, sunsets July 1st or June 30th, just temporarily increase them so that we can get them into the school. And then
Otherwise, we would have to wait until next fall to get them into the
Yes.
next academy,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So there's a sunset clause in this legislation also?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussions on this legislation? Any questions?
Yeah, I have
Joseph?
a question on this. So we're adding these 4. Is this because we promoted those other 4 people?
It's not to do with promotions, it's just to do with retirements. From my understanding, that was all that when we went to council's office that we asked for.
So,
Was-
Didn't we, at the time when it was all about the positions that they held, and
That's a different issue. This is simply only about
Replacing what we have.
replacing, for those people that are retiring in the next 2 months, 2 to 3 months, is temporarily increasing that complement so we can get them into that school. That's all it's about. That's
Get them in the
it.
seats
So,
before
in
the
other
seats are
words,
vacant.
if we wait, in other words, if we wait for them to retire, they'll have to wait until the academy in the fall
Yes.
to be able to get trained, and it'll take us that much longer to get them on the job.
okay,
This is good management right now.
It is.
Councilman Beatrice, any more questions?
no,
Celeste?
thank you.
Nope, I'm good.
Discussion's closed on number 4. Number 5, we have a property transfer for our budget amendment, sponsored by Councilwoman Celeste Friend. Councilwoman Celeste Friend, would you please talk to us about this?
So we talked about this at the last meeting. Myself and a number of other people, I think Mr. Durango, Mr. Beatrice, we were all concerned that we're spending far too little next year on contractual stormwater. We've done so much good work over the last few years. We want to keep that going. So I am proposing that we simply tick up our estimate for sales tax by 0.8%, $150,000, so that we can have a full $250,000 in the contractual stormwater line. I think that's really reasonable with all of the development going on in the city, the Mohawk Valley Garden, another new development that's going to bring in a lot of sales taxes to the city. We have consistently underestimated sales tax for, I asked somebody in a position who sort of has long memory of this, I said, how long have we been underestimating sales tax? And this person said forever. So I think it's very reasonable to think that we could simply tick it up by $150,000 in order to appropriately fund the contractual stormwater.
Councilman Beechers, you have the floor.
Yeah, I just have one question. I'd like to have, after I ask this question and get the answer I want, I hope I get the answer I want, I'd like to put my name on this.
I'd love to have
Okay.
your name on it, Joe.
So Heather, is Councilperson Friend correct in what she's talking about in the sales tax?
So sales tax is a function of what's happening economically, right? And so none of us have a crystal ball. None of us could have predicted COVID. I mean, there was a thought a year and a half, actually a year ago at this time. That's why this current year we are in today, I budgeted 15.9. We're gonna make 18.7. But it was the mayor's perspective that all the COVID stimulus money had been expended and people would stop spending. That didn't happen. So I use that as an example of you never really know, right? You don't know where economically you're going. Are there other stimulus things happening here locally? There are, from Nexus to some of the projects that are coming online, and those indeed bring sales tax. You know, those additional patrons coming in, they're eating in our restaurants, they're staying in our hotels. All that being said, all you need is a world war. All you need is a bank failure, right? We saw the stock
Federal
market
tax
earlier
interest
today
go up
drop
much
700
more?
points.
Less sales of properties, federal tax
Yeah.
going up.
And so I can only look at historicals, which is the memo I provided to you last week. So when you ask me, you know, do I think it's going to go up? We're all going to have a different opinion. We're all going to have a different opinion. All I
Okay.
can tell you is what's happened over the past couple of years.
Can I
Okay.
respond to
Wait,
that?
I still have the floor. So I just want to ask this too, and I'm pretty sure I know the answer from reading there. So in 2022, we spent $350,000 on flood mitigation, correct?
Yeah.
And in 2021, we had money from the, after the flood and all that, we spent $850,000. So the reason I am for this, is we spent a little over $1 million in 2 years cleaning cricks, cleaning ravines, doing everything that we've done great, okay? And we haven't had the problems that we've had. And we need to get on a program that hopefully this helps a little bit. We still have a couple $100,000 in that restricted fund, so we can get out there and do some jobs to maintenance, is what I want to say now. Because if we don't do this maintenance, we have big storms, we're going to be right where we were 3 years ago. So I'll support this.
Wait a minute, Joe. Okay, go ahead.
The only thing I wanted to say is if we have if a world war breaks out, the least problem we have is that we upticked our sales tax projections by 0.8% or $150,000. So I still am confident that our sales tax revenue will continue to grow. It always has, and there's just lots of good economic indicators. You know, inflation is coming back down again. Interest rates are settling out in terms of, you know, home buying, things like that. I'm really confident that we can safely predict that we'll bring in 18,850,000 rather than 18,700,000.
Bobby, you want something?
Yeah, I have a question. Is that account you're gonna put the money in, is that gonna be restricted as well as the 250 that you said you already have? Or is that gonna be a fund that we can?
It's a regular expense account in the general fund that can only be used for stormwater. If we were to use it for anything else, we'd have to come to E&A, and if it's over 15,000, we'd come back to the council.
All right, I'd just like to, just now, Heather's prediction could be spot on, which she does, Frankie, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to comment on that. Obviously, I would like to see more money in the line item there, but I don't like the way, we're trying to rely on sales tax to increase over 18.7. I don't like the transfer, I'm not gonna support it. I think what could happen, I don't know if we'll be spending the $250,000, at the beginning of April, but if we see our sales tax that, it's going over our budget that we budgeted for, and we see it's going higher, I think we can make a transfer at that time. I don't really want to commit $150,000 now when we don't even know if we're going to hit 18.7. So I'm not going to support it. You trying to, guess what our property tax is going to be. I just can't support it in that respect. Do I want more money in that account? Of course I do. But I just think that we can cross that bridge, if and when the sales tax, we'll know on a quarterly basis, what direction we're heading in. So I think we can make that transfer down the road. That's all.
Joey?
The only, Councilman DeRango, the only thing that I could say about your thinking there is that transfer, it would seem like it would be almost, we had a flood and we're in crisis where we need to do something. I'm looking to have the money in there to start with to do some sort of maintenance. And, maybe there's other ways that we could come up with that money. It's not a lot of money, but one way or another between us, I think we need to find a way to put that $250,000 in there.
Yeah, well, just one rebuttal here. We already have 200,000 in the account. So we already have is 100,000 budgeted.
Yeah.
100,000.
So we actually have 300,000 total sitting there. So if we use that up, I'm sure that we will find funding somewhere within this budget to make sure that we, control it. But to take it and try to add it, an estimate that we're going to hit the 18.7 or 18.850,000. I don't know. I can't support that.
Okay.
But again, that money that we have in the restricted fund is for an emergency, not for maintenance. So that is for, that restricted fund is something we don't want to touch. We want to touch that if we have a major problem. Like I said, $100,000, and they're not going to transfer money from other departments to go do maintenance in streams and anything like that. So this is just my opinion, and that's.
Listen, so take it to the floor, whatever
Yeah,
happens.
fine, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I guess in terms of the idea that like E&A could make the transfer during the year, what E&A doesn't do, and I say this as someone who serves on E&A, is we don't amend the budget halfway through the year. We could only take money from some other expense account in the city. We can't say, hey, we're doing well on sales taxes, let's amend the budget to increase our sales tax prediction. We can't do that during the year. So if our sales tax prediction goes up from 18.7, there's no sort of E&A way in which we take that extra money from sales tax prediction and move it into some line. That's called amending the budget. And that's what I'm suggesting we do here and
Well,
now.
let me just
But what if we don't hit that mark?
Hold on, Frankie, let me
We're
just
still
clarify.
committed to 250,000. We don't hit that mark.
Let's make it easy for us. I think we can all agree on this. Let's look at the sales tax they come in mid-year. If we are above our normal draw and the estimates, okay, then of course we can move the money and allocate it where you want. But we don't know right now, and there's no concrete, and Heather will tell you, we don't know what tomorrow's going to bring with the sales tax revenue. So if we wait mid-year, we're gonna use $100,000, Joey. We're gonna use the maintenance procedure. We're gonna have that money to start with at the beginning of the year. Towards the end of the half of the year, if we need to transfer more money for maintenance, which of course we're gonna be notified.
Where would we be transferring it from,
Right from
Frank?
sales tax, because it's bringing in.
That
money.
sales tax is
I
not
said
an
from sales tax. I'm not increasing sales tax right now. I'm going to take it from sales tax.
Can I say one thing?
There's no E&A method by
So
which to
can I-
do that.
So can I say
They're
one
coming
thing?
at you, they're coming in heavy, yes they are. Go ahead.
On your theory there? That's a great theory. So on your theory, how can any of us vote for the budget?
What do you mean?
You got a 0% increase, but there's a chance that we can have a $3.3 million debt.
That's our estimated.
No,
The
it's
whole
not
budget's
estimated.
estimated. We
Right,
don't
the
know
whole
what's
thing
gonna
is
happen.
estimated.
Exactly,
So,
but exactly.
I mean, how could you, everybody says it's great, we got a 0% budget.
Right.
But there's a chance we could lose at arbitration, and the city could get billed between 1.5 and $3 million.
that
This
issue-
is 150,000, it's the same thing.
When that
It goes
issue
by-
comes, Joe, you have to attack it.
Right, well.
When this issue comes, we need more maintenance money, we have to attack it.
Okay, well, I think we should be proactive on this. It's just my opinion, that's okay.
All right, is there any
Bring it
more
to the floor.
discussions on it?
I just want to touch the floor really quick, and I apologize for being late. I think that the sales tax has already been increased a significant amount from what we had budgeted last year. And based on the projection of what you're giving this year, I think that range that we're in is a comfortable amount to raise the sales tax revenue from last year. And I think raising it anymore is really kind of setting us up for any higher projection than what we would have this year.
And we really
I mean, we're
don't
already,
know
I think it's
what-
like
until we get the
1.8% up from last year.
I agree.
I mean, so I think that if maybe we were down $150,000, not raising an additional $150,000, I think that would make sense. But to raise it any more of what expectation we could be getting out of that.
Any additional discussion for this piece? Discussion is closed, let's go to number 6. Number 6 is a resolution to rename Johnson's, wait, is that piece supposed to be in there?
No.
Oh, okay, we do have a little typo at the heading, but that's no big deal. I'm assuming that my colleague, Venice Irving, has this well under control. Would you please give us a summary?
Well, I think it was one of the lawyers from the city, Charlie Brown called me and said officially 911 and some other areas were having of the city were having a problem with the name Johnson Park, when officially on the city register and tax records that people get is Johnson Square. So in order to, and we've always called it Johnson Park, but officially it's actually Johnson Square. So what we want to do is just change it to Johnson Park, because that's what everybody calls it. And that's what we all get our mail is Johnson Park. Even though it's strange, this week some of the people start getting Johnson Square on their mail, so we need to straighten it out.
Any questions for Councilman Venice Irving on the name change?
I just have a question for the clerk. So on number 6, that's just a typo there, P square?
Yes, okay.
Okay, you can amend that typo if you want. President will read into the record.
Okay.
Okay, there's also a map attached to this for the exact place. And number 7, I'm pretty sure, is the ordinance to help support it. Is there any additional questions for changing the name to Johnson Park? Discussion's closed on number 7. Let's move to number 8 then. Commissioner Deeds for Judge Anthony Guillermo. Any discussion? Discussion is closed on number 8. Let's go to the next piece. Our next piece of legislation is a solid waste amendment I'm pretty sure for a dumpster, if I'm looking right. Yes. Any discussions for that?
There were just some typos in the process, the one we had just passed this past month.
Okay.
So Solid Waste Authority had no problem adding in because we didn't pass our budget yet, so they were able to hit it, and that's all that is.
Any discussions on number 9? Number 9 is closed. We're running to number 10 now. This is the discontinuance of a proportion of Cornelia Street. I'm assuming this was for the hospital. Would you like to talk about that one?
Yeah,
Heather?
Brian and Stephanie are gonna start.
Brian's here. Brian, would you like to give us a summary or start?
It's
Which
Cornelia
one?
Street.
This
The
is
portion
doing a
retaining
proportion to retain the police department.
entrance.
Yeah, this is just to maintain city control over a portion of Cornelia Street that allows for the entrance to the police maintenance facility, the garage.
Initially, when it was passed, the whole street was conveyed. We need to retain that portion so we have access to the facility, so that's what we're carving out right now.
Okay, any questions? There's only a proportion of Cornelia Street. It's after you probably reach the Marisky Boulevard is after you reach the, our repair shop for the police department. There is a public hearing, I think, called. Is there any problem calling it for our next council meeting? Everybody okay with that? Oh, we got a problem. What's up?
The memo is asking for at least 6 weeks,
So we need 6 weeks?
yeah, from the adoption of the resolution before the public hearing.
Okay, Joe, question is, do you want us to hold this, put both pieces in committee, or do you want us to stop? You want us to call for a public hearing in 6 weeks? You want us to put a date on it?
I would put a date on it. Give me a minute, I'll give you the,
Okay, we'll go back to the date after, make sure everything's good for the council as soon as Stephanie's ready. Let's move
That's a
on to the
planning
next
board committee?
piece.
So this will be good to go?
Everybody good with that, right? Yep.
The resolution,
The
right?
resolution for Cornelia Street.
For 6 weeks, probably.
Resolution for a public hearing.
6 weeks may be the second meeting.
And the ordinance for sale for that is number 11, and that has to go into committee. Any questions?
It'd have to be
Okay,
the first one
discussions
in
closed
May.
on number 11. We're on sale of URA properties. Resolution number 12.
Yeah, they should-
Sponsored by Councilwoman Aiello. Ooh, we got a lot of properties going on Liberty
Should we schedule
Street.
for the
Councilwoman
first-
Aiello, you in favor of all the
May.
sales of all those properties?
I just voted yes, but
Yeah.
Okay, we're good with that. So I'm assuming, yes, the call for the public hearing, number 12, needs a vote. And number 13, the
Wait,
adjacent
wait.
committee. Celeste, would you like to do the committee one?
Hmm?
Would you like to put the properties in committee again?
Yeah,
Mhm.
sure. That's fine.
Bobby Burmaster, we have number 14, resolution for 822 Waverly Place. Are you in favor of the sale of that property, sir?
I'm good with that, thank you.
We need to vote on number 14, 15 into committee. Okay, we have a plethora of amendments for our E-code, thanks to Jimmy Boswell and our councilman Dennis Irving. There's one on Arthur and Nielsen Street. Are you in favor of this amendment, sir?
Yes.
Okay, any questions on number 16? All these amendments are after the Thursday rule or any piece of legislation, council members. Everybody okay discussing the legislation is after the Thursday rule? Okay. Any questions on 16? 16 is closed. Let's move to 17. Councilman Irving, Arthur Street and Howard Ave, four-way stop, each intersection. Are you in favor of this legislation? sir?
Yes.
Okay. Number 17, any discussions? Discussions closed. Let's go to number 18. Sponsored by Councilman Irving, Arthur and Miller Street, four-way stop. Are you in favor of this legislation?
Yes.
Discussion? Discussions closed. Councilman Irving, intersection with stops required. Square Street and Conklin Ave. Sir, are you in favor of this?
Yep.
Jimmy Boswell has done an excellent job in helping us update our E-code. Thank you again, Jimmy. Thank you. We're on number 20, sponsored by Councilman Irving. Square Street and Seymour Ave, four-way stop.
Yep.
21, sponsored by Councilman Irving, stops required. We're removing Square Street and Dudley Ave. Is that correct? Oh, there was a traffic light there, now there's a four-way stop. Okay?
Yep.
Number 22, Nielsen Street and Square Street, northwest, southeast corners. Are you in favor of that piece of legislation?
Yeah.
Okay, we got through them halfway decent. Resolution providing a public hearing for our zoning. Council members, there is a list of zoning ordinances. This is the first time that we are seeing them. We do request them to go into committee, but I would request the council to support number 23 is calling for the public hearing for our next council meeting.
I don't think we want to do it at our next council meeting because does that give the planning board enough time to look at these and get their recommendation back to us?
these are all going to planning board tomorrow.
Tomorrow, okay, thank you.
The next question I have for my colleagues, please look over each amendment carefully. There is a chart sheet that I passed out. Stephanie will give you a quick summary about it, and then any questions, we'll entertain it at committee of the whole at our next meeting. Stephanie.
So just briefly, so there was a number of zoning amendments at the last meeting that got sent to planning board. There was a number that the administration prepared. That's what you see in this chart here. We tried to break up the definitions for neighborhood retail because as it stands right now, all these businesses that are encompassed in the definition of neighborhood retail, neighborhood convenience store, and specialty food store get wrapped into that neighborhood neighborhood retail licensing program as you guys are trying to utilize that, so we needed to break that up. So we gave a number of different definitions, and then we proposed amending the use table to do that. So there's a number of options for the council to consider, for you guys to look at. Like I said, it's going to planning board on Thursday, and then we can discuss it either now if you have questions, I know you just got these, or for the next council meeting after planning board gives their recommendation and after you have time to review it.
We do have time to discuss some of these amendments. Some of them are in conflict with others, but we have a choice. For example, if you want to check your notes, there is a proposed amendment, which is 29, it's conflict with 34, but you can pick one. In other words, we have choices on how you want the zoning code to go. If you look at number 31, which is another amendment, it's in conflict with 35. With those two, again, pick the best one that you guys feel that we should change our zoning to, and we'll move forward with it, okay? I want everybody to look at these amendments thoroughly. That's why we're gonna put them in committee. We have 2 weeks to peruse them very carefully and to make a decision at our next meeting.
Can we have a special meeting just to go over this stuff?
We do.
Huh?
We'll have it on the 20th. It'll be called tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Yeah.
We could have a special meeting. That's if, we can vote on the budget tonight if there isn't any.
Yeah, and if we don't, that meeting will happen at 5 o'clock on Monday.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly.
To discuss these.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or we can discuss it at our next
Well,
meeting.
We-
Oh, we can't because.
So you
I thought you were talking about, no, these we can't do that.
Okay,
It'll just be a budget.
all right.
The
sounds
agenda's
good.
I mean,
only-
That's what I'm saying. Can't we have a special, I mean, there's a lot of.
You can discuss these, but you have to call for the public hearing, and we need time for you to
Before
call for
voting
it.
on it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
So,
All right, well, whatever the council feels about the amendments, we'll go from there. So if anybody's okay for the public hearing for April 5th, 2023, any discussions? So that covers every piece of legislation. Oh, we got number 24, I'm sorry. This is sponsored by Councilwoman Aiello. Councilwoman Aiello, it was changed the format to a resolution. You would like to change our observer dispatch to our own sentinel.
Yeah, I would. And it would actually be the Daily Sentinel, but I think we were going to discuss, I was waiting to hear back with engineering. They know the actual fees for the legal notice, so.
So you want to put the resolution
Back
committee?
in. Yes, that'd be great. Thanks.
Very good. I do believe we have a legal, like the judge told me last time about this, we have to have so much circulation.
They meet those requirements, and they've been,
And you have it documented?
yes, yeah, and Bradley from the Sentinel's willing to help with whatever, but yeah, I emailed the judge prior to this, so we were looking
As
at.
long as we have documentation on it.
We'll get
Go
those.
from
And
there.
they
Judge, we're
meet the
talking
postal
about the
service.
newspaper?
This, the newspaper?
Yes.
I had a long discussion with Charlie about this today, because I told him it'd probably come up. Charlie wanted us to, first of all, change it from an ordinance to a resolution, because that follows our former practice and the practice we've been using for years.
At the beginning of
When
the
we
year.
adopted the newspaper in January, when you took office, we used a resolution, and if we're gonna pick a successor, he would prefer to be a resolution, and in the legislation say that the successor expires December 31st of '23, because that's when your offices expire. And actually say that in the legislation. So it isn't there, but I put a little amendment on one I had that it expires December 31st to 2023. That allows the new council to do whatever they wish to do. And if you're gonna change the newspaper, you can do it that way, and you do it by resolution. You really amend the original resolution that you passed at our organizational meeting. Does that answer your questions? And you need a 2/3 vote, which means 6.
Councilman Aiello,
Okay.
anything you'd like to add? You're good.
No, I'm just
Can
excited
we,
to move forward.
can we amend it tonight,
Wait,
just in
can we
terms of the
ask this
title?
question? So, Judge,
Hold on.
do I have the floor? So you're saying that you can't do this midterm? You have to wait till the new council comes in?
No.
No, I'm saying you can pass it, but the new paper designation, if you make one, expires December 31st because it has to go with your term.
Oh,
and your
so then
term
the new
expires
council
December
would have to
31st
redo that
of
again.
23.
Okay, all right.
And he wanted that to specifically be placed in the resolution as opposed
Okay.
to an ordinance, and that's what I've done. I've amended mine, but that it reads a little different. I say that at the end, I put that the Rome Sentinel being hereby designated as official newspaper in the city of Utica up to and until 12/31/23.
All right. That has
Okay?
to-
And if you
Councilman
pass
Aiello,
that amendment,
Amend that.
that's all I
And
have
we
to
have to
say
amend
on
the
the
name
document.
as the Daily
And you need
Sentinel,
6
please.
votes.
Councilman Miola,
Yes.
have the floor for a second. Councilman Beatrice,
Yes,
that's part of the organizational meeting the council has, the new
Right.
council.
right,
That's what that is.
right.
So we're just,
Resolved, not the ordained.
So if we pass this, going till the end of December, the Rome Sentinel will be our paper.
well, I think it's technically daily. They'll
Daily,
work that out.
whatever,
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
But then when new council comes in, they would have to vote the Rome Sentinel.
Of course, every 2 years we
Every two-
reorganize.
Yeah, okay,
yes.
that's fine.
They wouldn't have to, but
Well,
presumably they
right,
would.
if they
The
want-
daily.
No, you do, actually. It's
Well-
part of the organization.
No, you have to
Yeah.
vote, but she's saying that you might vote for the other newspaper.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
yes.
And our,
Okay.
if I may, at our organizational meeting, the beginning of last year, the Daily Sentinel wasn't officially in Utica. I think they had to be in for a year, so that happened as of February. So now they meet the requirements to actually be our
Problem.
official paper.
And did we take a look at the amount per ad that we do mostly with the papers? Did you
That's what
price that out yet?
Eugene's going to look at that.
Okay, so after, we want to put this into committee until we get that information, right? Okay. Any questions? Go ahead,
Just a
Samantha.
couple of things. I mean, I guess if we're rescinding and replacing, I would like to know the reasoning behind the Observer Dispatch being replaced by the Daily Sentinel Company. And I would also like to have the opportunity, and I know he sent us an email, Brad Waters, in regards to the possibility of a change. So I think just bringing him in here and kind of, pitching his piece to why we think that we should switch, I think is something that needs to be done, especially halfway throughout the year.
Is he a recommendation of the Observer Dispatch?
Huh?
What paper does he?
This was the Daily Sentinel.
He
He's also
represents the
sent
Daily
an email.
Sentinel.
Yeah, I also.
Um,
I'd like to just
Heather.
add, I think it might be important to ask Mike Mahoney to attend. The majority of all our notices are put out by engineering, and we've had some significant issues this past year. Brian's nodding his head. We've had to cancel meetings, we've had to do certain things, so I think it's not just about pro Sentinel, it's also about where we are with the OD.
Yeah, and that's what I was kind of saying, like, what is the issue? Because, I mean, the OD's been the official newspaper for the city for.
And it's not under local management
A
anymore.
number.
I
Yeah,
think
no,
it's
When you reach out to somebody, it's
Brian,
in
I'm
a different
totally,
stage.
I'm totally well aware. I mean, it's blatantly obvious, but I just, for the official
Okay.
record of why they have been replaced, I think is very important for us to know, moving
All
forward.
set, Samantha?
Because there'll still be an official newspaper that reports on the city.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, except, right, but the Observer Dispatch doesn't report on the city anymore. They don't have any reporters covering local politics at the very least. And I think it's actually reasonable for us to worry that the OD might go all the way under. I simply think that we should reward, assuming that the prices are the same, I think that we should reward the newspaper that is actually investing in local journalism, and that is no longer Gannett. Unfortunately, it's sad, but true.
Do we know anybody who's representing the Observer Dispatch? Only for fairness, we would have to hear from.
What's the report?
That's what I'm saying, I mean,
I got
you
his,
can't just take the,
Right.
you gotta have an explanation for why you're replacing them.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? I don't wanna just notice.
Steve's no
No,
longer
he doesn't
there.
anymore.
So if it's
That's Steve
possible-
Howe, and he no longer works for,
He's with the
he no
Monthly
longer
Times.
works for the Observer
Nobody's
Dispatch.
there anymore. It's
Hasn't for
Maria.
quite a while.
Anybody to contact in the Observer Dispatch would like to come to the meeting also?
The only people we're gonna be able to contact are gonna be local reporters. Other than that, you can't even get an editor on the phone who's local. The editors are all out of like Rochester, I believe.
Well, let's give it an opportunity, let's try it, clerk, see if you can find somebody, because I hate to, make a decision without council here on both sides. All right? Any questions, any additional discussions? Okay, discussion's closed on number 24, we're moving into committee. From 25 to 30, something,
Seven.
35.
37.
36, I'm sorry.
37.
Nope, 37, we have an amendment. From 25 to 36 are all going into committee, and now we're going into number 37. This is a proposal to amend our budget, sponsored by Councilman Klaus Testa. Would you please, you have the floor, please explain your amendment.
Sure, so everybody received an email on behalf of the Stephen Swan Humane Society in regards for the contract for the city of Utica and for them to continue their services with inside the city. We know that over the past several years, there's been an increase of what the city of Utica has had to use in regards with the Stephen Swan Humane Society. In the document that Anita from the Stephen Swan Humane Society had sent to us, she had stated that the Humane Society takes in about 1,400 animals. Out of those 1,400 animals, 1,000 of those animals come from the city of Utica. In regards to their budgeting, they look at close to $1 million that it costs the city to do business with. They did send us a contract stating that although it cost $1 million, they would still seek the possibility to fundraise the $500,000 and is also seeking for the city to cover that other half of the cost. Now, with that said, I did notice that in their budget last year, they did state that the city of Utica did provide them with $198,000 in revenue. Obviously, what they're asking, and here's the thing that, I had a couple discussions with people earlier today that kind of put us in a bind. The Common Council gets a budget, and unfortunately, we don't discuss contracts. That's left to the administration to negotiate, so on and so forth. The responsibility that we do have, though, is that we do have this information in front of us. It's already passed the mayor, and now it's left with the Common Council to either make a decision to do something or not to do something. So what I have proposed here is three budget amendments, and it's kind of just a exchange between budget accounts to make sure that the Stephen Swan Humane Society does have the possibility to at least have an additional $130,000 into their budget on top of the $120,000 that the city's also proposed. And I found $250,000 if I need to transfer in and around accounts. However, I think that since it is only a one-year contract and the mayor will no longer be there, it would be nice for the next person that's the mayor to negotiate a new contract with the Stephen Swan Humane Society. So in those discussions, I had come up with a little rearrangement of funds, and that would put $250,000 into the Stephen Swan Humane Society's account. And then I will also be requesting that the city put an additional $250,000 of ARPA funding into that account to supplement that one-year budget so that we can just continue this contract that we have from, because what's going to happen is that it's going to be even more of a burden on the city when the Stephen Swan Humane Society no longer takes in those animals that service us. I mean, I think that the police department, I didn't get a chance to have a conversation with Chief Williams, just a conflict. He said he was going to be at the meeting tonight. I'm not sure. In regards to what the animal control has to do. And they obviously take those animals that they get and they bring them to the Stephen Swan Humane Society. So, like I said, I think that it's up to the Common Council what they want to do with this, and then, move forward. But I think that it's going to be a huge burden on the city residents when they have no place to bring these animals to. And I'm not sure what the other option is. Is it a kill shelter? Is it another, but according to what I was told, that the city was offered a contract and that's what their board had settled on, and that's what they're sticking with.
Okay, wait, Joey. Heather, do you have any type of summaries for these? Any ideas about these transfers?
Yeah, so I just want to mention, we did meet, I met with Stephen Swans last week, because the one question you have to ask before you fund anyone is, what are your financials looking like, right? Because you hear this week. 3 years in a row. Yeah. Yep. A couple years ago, when they came in and we doubled their contribution from 60 to 120,000, I had them go through and kind of divide out the number of animals that come from the city of Utica, so that we could get to that number, because they couldn't give us that number. And so now they can. That's what you all received. When they came in, they expect the loss for December 31st, 2022 to be approximately $170,000. Now, they used to do, there's a lot of fundraising. The board has really, the complex of the board has evolved this past year, changed up quite a bit. They used to do more with the fur ball and those kinds of things, but now Anita is very involved, right? She's a fundraising. Yes, she is, and she does a lot of matching. Animal. She does a lot of matching, but when you take a look at the numbers, the number of animals that come directly from the city of Utica I mean, that number is a true reflection, so, based that their numbers are correct, okay? I have looked at the numbers. So that's kind of number one. So you're looking at $170,000 loss. If you give them $250, then that, you could say, well, they could do less fundraising, but automatically you put them in a surplus position if we had done that last year, right? But then you would say, what about all the other years, right? So the number could be a fair number. So I'm not really a good arbitrator of if it's fair or if it's not fair. All I can tell you is a couple of things as it relates to these transfers. So the last one, and I know we're looking at 37, 38, and 39. 39 has it coming from the mayoral salary account of $60,000. The only place that can really come from is we can't change the mayor's salary because that's set, right, by statute, is the administrative assistant that the mayor has, and then the chief of staff. And right now, as I've mentioned to you, the chief of staff position is about $89,000, and so that would defund that position by $60,000. I mean, the mayor's going to be here through the end of December. You could say, you know, April 1st through December 31st. But next year's budget, if the next mayor decides they want to have a chief of staff, is going to have to be made up somewhere. So that's just clarification. That's up to you what you want to do.
What is the administrative assistant make off the top of your head?
She has taken, I want to say around 55, but that's because she's doing a lot more than just answering the telephone. She's taken on a lot of foils that we assist the law department and the clerk's department because they couldn't do them all. They couldn't keep up with them, especially as it relates to some of our police cases that now Discovery's made it, you know, a lot more laborious than it was previously. So you could bring that salary down in the next mayoral administration, but you're going to have to give those duties to somebody else, and you'll probably be creating a new position. But we were fortunate that the person who is the mayor's secretary right now was a legal assistant for an experienced attorney for many, many years. So she knew how to do this. So we were very fortunate to have her, but I don't know that she'll be staying. As it relates to number 37, I mean, this year we'll have used, I believe we have $250,000 in the contingency account for the present year. We'll have used all of that. Now, we use that during the year because at the end of the year we do cleanups, and I move money from smaller accounts all over the place, which makes it, because it's very difficult at the beginning of the year when I need to make a transfer to go hit those, because I don't know. We don't have enough history, right, until we get close to the end of the year. You know, that's just really your option. If you want to, you know, reduce the contingency account to that number, I don't, you know, that's your, slush isn't the right word, but that's your variance that you can go in for things, you know, unexpected things that happen throughout the year.
Do you know if Stephen Swan's, go ahead, Joe. Go ahead, Joy, I'm sorry.
Example of unexpected things that happen during the year.
Gas increases. Last year, we increased the contingency to $250, and we actually used a good portion of it. It could be for anything from stormwater to hiring a new position. You know, and as it relates to moving it from that account, there again, if it's over $15,000, we have to come to the council with it. So it's not something that ENA just does on their own.
Do you know if Stephen Swan's asked the mayor for any additional ARPA money yet?
They actually asked for last year at this time.
Well, but this year, like for this?
They ask every time we talk to them.
Okay.
But remember, the ARPA money is not to supplement their general fund budget.
That I concur.
Right, that ARPA money, and even when she came down here, and I think Councilman Beatrice was a big promoter of this, it had to do with the cats.
Correct.
It had to do with our feral cats and sterilization. I shouldn't say sterilization, but neutering and spading.
I think sterilization.
Yeah, okay, sterilization.
Sterilization works.
Sterilization. And so they have been doing that. I know Brian's here. They've submitted several vouchers. I think they've used about $270,000 of that $400,000 that was allocated for them. So
they already used from ARPA money, how much again?
They were allocated 400, and I think they've used up to 270.
So they have more money to allocate up to 400. They haven't used it yet, correct?
Correct, but remember, it's for a specific purpose. It's for sterilization of cats. It's
Okay.
not for dogs. It's not for salaries.
It's not for taking care of them in the.
associated
So do you know the
with it.
specific?
Where's the money? Who has that money? The city does. They give you a voucher and we pay them. So she's still got $130,000 to use for that.
Yeah, and I
Yes,
don't
but
see
only
if you
for
have your ARPA
sterilizing
money there.
cats.
Okay, no, I
Your
get
ARPA
it.
sheet, yeah, I don't have my ARPA sheet with me, but I want to say, when I looked at it the other day, they have expended up to 270. And they just started a year ago. We had to get a contract with them. It's in their defense.
And we do have a contract with them, correct?
Yes, we do, for the 400. Yes, we do.
And it expires the end of March.
Well, no, not for the ARPA money.
Not for the ARPA funding,
No.
but for their contract with the city.
Yes.
They're separate contracts.
Yes.
They're-
So, I mean, with the contract that they're saying, so what they're saying is even if you gave us $120,000 last year, and they gave us whatever our money in ARPA funding for that, whatever that's money that's been allocated, they're still short that $380,000.
Wow.
So that's part of the problem that we're having, and I think that a good part that, you know, on our behalf, that we could say, hey, listen, here's $250,000, because we've only got 3 weeks before the contract expires with Stevens Fund Humane Society, is give them a little leeway, negotiate throughout that year, figure out if you can come up with a better rate, and I think that it doesn't tie the next administration to place that $500,000 into the budget, to be tied to give that to them every single year.
What about contributions from surrounding municipalities? Why do we have to do it all?
Because they're city of Utica cats,
We're
cats
72%.
and dogs and everything that they get.
The majority of them, when she's talking about, I had them go through and take the total population that comes in and where they come from, and divide out the Utica population.
Oh, you did it percentage-wise.
Yeah, we did a percentage, and it far exceeds. I mean, that's what they
Like
sent you.
72%.
Yeah, it
So-
far exceeds.
Total.
And we're responsible. If they were to go under, we would have to take our animals somewhere, and probably at a much higher cost, which is something that Anita really, you know.
Hold on, Joey, one
reminds us
second.
I
Kate.
want to say the other thing that they did is, so they proposed the 500,000, or their other option of a contract would be to pay per animal $300 shelter intake fee, which, and then on top of that would be a $25 daily fee. Some of these pit bulls, some of these dogs, all of them can stay upwards of a year, sometimes 2 years. We're looking at 9,000, 18,000 plus for an animal. Really, I think the flat rate contract of what they were offering was the better route if we're going anyway. Because if we don't do this, I think they're going to look into a contract of $300 per animal.
And I think that
fee.
that's the problem that we run into, is that the contract does expire. So although we don't have the good faith to negotiate for these types of contracts, I think that with the budget in front of us, we could say, hey, Mayor, listen, you know, we're willing to, you know, put up that $250,000 for you. Can you replace that other money with the ARPA funding to move forward? Just get this contract settled this year, and then throughout the year, figure out how you're gonna supplement in your budget.
Samantha, I think you hit the nail right on the head. I do believe that most of this funding, especially the one for the mayor's assistant, you're looking at 60,000. Why don't we talk to the mayor about this, and then he can always move the money later on through E&A.
Well, because we don't have that much time. We have like, I think, what, a week and a half after we
The
pass.
contract is done when?
March.
March 31st.
Well, that's when it expires, but we actually don't have a contract for several months
But we
after that.
continue the contract we have until the other one's renewed, correct?
Oh, they.
Well, we
that's
don't,
not
they
what I was
they
told.
continue providing the services.
Okay,
Okay.
under the same contract?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so,
But how long do you
Frankie
think
DeBrango?
they're gonna do that?
Yeah,
Put
just-
themselves under.
If they don't sign, right, there's an agreement between two parties, then we have to refer to Herkimer or other
Yes. Or Rome,
humane
Rome,
societies.
Rome.
Okay, it might be costly. Obviously, they gotta travel all the way to Utica and whatever it may be. So if they're gonna hold us to more money, you know, I don't know, maybe we could look at it. I don't like, number 39, you know, maybe if we hold this, number 37 from the general contingency and transfer at least $70,000, I would be in favor of that. But I don't think I'm in favor of any other transfers.
So I'll
So
give
at
you-
least we're giving them something. I'm talking right now.
Yeah, no, I'll just
And
explain that after.
we're giving them something, we're trying to help them out. But I'd like to know what New Hartford, Whitesboro, Whitestown, I mean, what do they give the Humane Society? So if they're giving them $100 a year and we're giving them $120,000, I know we use 72% of it.
And
I
how-
understand that, but what do they give them?
Don't forget, we're not looking 3 years until their budget either. For normal contributions, for anything allocated, our job is to check the need. Now, you're using city tax dollars, okay? They haven't, and to me, I agree with Samantha, maybe there is a need, but it hasn't been proven to you, me, or anybody else at this table with their financials,
Okay.
okay?
No.
Go ahead,
But
Samantha.
let me, I'd
ahead,
like to
Frank.
continue. What I'm gonna say is, if they do not sign a contract, where does the city of Utica stand? You know what I mean, in as far as picking up stray animals? I mean, we have to sub it to somebody, somebody's gotta do it, and what is it gonna cost the city of Utica if we don't sign a contract for the minimum 120? Hopefully, we can help them out a little bit, but what do we do?
I agree.
So there's gonna be stray animals all over the place.
Yeah.
Wait
and that's not a
seconds.
good thing.
One at a time, council members. Samantha's got
But
the
that's
floor
up to the administration. I know it's not on us,
Yeah.
but if we could help in just a small way, I would be satisfied, but go ahead.
now. All right, go ahead, Samantha.
Okay, thank you.
Speak
So
your
the
piece.
reason that I took $60,000 is because if the mayor chooses not to fill that chief of staff position from now until December, it does give that new mayor the chance to fulfill that position for, I think, at least 7, 14, 21, 28, 3 or 4, about 4 months into their new term. So, and then obviously they would have to transfer that money into that. So I did give the new administration, and obviously we were told at the last time that it was an unfilled position and so on and so forth. And even if the mayor does decide to fill it in the next couple of months, he could transfer money. We don't have that ability to transfer that money from budget line to budget line. So with that said, I did give the administration, a new administration, the right to fill that position for 4 months. With the general fund contingency, and I've looked back at our past year's budget, I think I got like 2012 here. You know, we've been pretty steady of keeping a contingency at that minimum. We have raised it. I think it was like $50,000 compared to what we used to was like a 200,000 or 180 or something like that. So I did think taking that 70,000 and putting that to that 180 still did leave that little leeway. And I did also go through our budget, and we did raise a lot of lines to protect us in case there was an increase in electrical, increase in all that stuff.
Quite frugal with
I mean,
all
I
those
went
lines.
through it
I don't
line
know
by
about you,
line.
but
I mean, I did, and I was pretty, I mean,
like gas
like
and
for example, like I could have taken $25,000 out of the police repair line for the administration because our three-year projection has been about $150,000. This year, they've got $175,000 in that line. So I didn't want to take away from specific departments moving forward, knowing that we are, you know, using ARPA funding to buy new equipment and to repairs, you know, whatever they could utilize that money for. So I did take it out of contingency because I could have taken it from someplace else, but I think that lowering it to that amount is truly not going to be that detrimental to taking money out of that line.
Somebody else would like to speak, please.
Yeah, sure. No,
Yeah.
that's all I was saying. So I didn't, I really, I mean, I had
Mark
20 other
wanted to-
budget amendments of money that I could have taken on those lines. I thought that it was most responsible to take
Joseph
it out
and
of
then
those.
Mark, go ahead. Joey?
Yeah, so I'm looking at the fund here. She's saying to take 70,000 away from it, from 250 to 180. We didn't have a problem taking 250,000 away from the flooding that went from 350 to 100, which I think is, I know it's my little pet peeve, but I think that's very, very important. I mean, you know, I'm for the people, and the flooding is a big issue for the people. And to be honest with you, if we don't settle this and help them, from what you guys are telling me, I don't know, you're telling me, I live in North Utica, if I bring a dog there, they're gonna tell me they're not gonna take the dog because I live in Utica and the contract's out? Is that correct?
So they
Heather would
say.
have to answer that.
So they say, yes.
Okay, so, I mean, and again, again, when we talk about the flooding at 100,000, you come back and tell me, don't worry about that, Councilman. If you have a big flood, we can transfer money into that and take care of it. So if we have a problem with this contingency fund, can't we take the money from someplace else and add to that fund?
You're just switching call centers, Joe.
So I want to go back to when we started this whole budget process. I have chipped down every account that I can. I have raised
Your
sales tax.
expense accounts are
I have
lean.
raised sales tax. We have looked at, the administration has looked at every account to right-size them. Because this time, 5 or 6 years ago, you didn't have a fund balance.
Right.
Right? And you have one now, and that was built on purpose. It was built through underestimating sales tax. It was built through not filling positions when they came open. That doesn't happen anymore. So this budget is very tight budget. I'm not suggesting you don't pass these amendments. That's not what I'm suggesting. I want to be clear that this is a very, very tight budget this year. And I hope that with sales tax comes in higher than 18.7, I hope that, you know, ambulance revenues come in higher. But we know there's some changes on the ambulance revenue side as it relates to the state and the county and what they're gonna be looking to do. They're gonna be offering Uber rides instead of using our fire department for their ambulance service. So there's a lot of tenuous things going on here. And so that's, I just want to make myself clear.
Mark?
So Heather, one question. I mean, this is very doable though, right? So basically, I mean, I'm hearing all the recommendations,
It's not a
money this,
significant amount.
because it's all, you just don't know, there's money.
Yeah, it's not a significant amount of money.
Exactly. Could this happen? Could we just make this happen for the flooding and this and keep it at a zero budget? Because we're kind of setting ourselves up next year, or the next administration in a way, because eventually it's gonna bite. And like you said, flooding is an issue, especially in the spring, I would assume, as well as, the cats as April 1st. So, can this be done without doing all these amendments and just make it happen?
They'd have to propose a new budget, right?
So, I don't think so, and I'll tell you why. For the past 5-6 years, that CIT fund has been built up. We haven't used it. It's not a slush fund, but we only use it and bring it into the general fund when we need it. We budgeted for it. Why didn't we use it? Because our sales tax was so much over budget that it offset it. So much so, right, last year, the previous year, we had a $3 million surplus.
That's the water board money.
Yeah.
CIT.
The CIT fund. We had positions the past 5 or 6 years that were funded. The mayor hoped to fill them. He really sincerely did, looking for the right people, whether it was a mason or a carpenter, or even a cleaner that would show up. We didn't fill those positions. We had police positions that we wanted to fill, tried to fill, and couldn't fill for a variety of reasons. So all those things put together have provided the past 5 or 6 years of significant surpluses. Those things aren't going to be there anymore. They're not going to be there anymore. I do expect this next year's budget, you will be taking from the water fund. You will be taking from that. We're trying to do everything we can not to do that. That will be my goal to the end of the year, and the next budget director's goal, hopefully the next mayor's goal, because that's your only real savings account that's left.
And so $12 million.
Yeah, so it's really all about trying to keep expenses as tight as we can, and trying to increase revenues during the year as it relates to everything from birth fees, increasing birth fees. We constantly look at ambulance fee increases. We look at everything from our alarms. Right now we're looking at our alarms, false alarms that are around the city, and our fire department shows up in the expense that goes to that. So we're constantly looking at trying to raise fees. So my long-winded answer is that a lot of this is subjective. And I will do everything in my power. I question it. I get constantly yelled at, tortured by department heads, by staff. Why won't you sign off on this? Brian, Captain Basner is here. He can tell you. He's constantly calling me. Why can't you get this through? Why can't you get this through? So we look at everything, make sure the bidding policy is there to get the best possible cost for a taxpayer. So we're going to continue to do that. I want to see surpluses ongoing, right? The more money more cash that we have, the ability to finance things on our own. And so we'll do everything we can to meet it if these amendments are passed.
And just to follow up on that, so if we vote for this and make this happen, for the sewer fund as well as the cat thing tonight, and we move this money around, you can actually just like we do every year, we move a lot of money around, we do E&A transfer, we do all these different things, just in case the mayor does hire a chief of staff. You never know.
Right.
You just don't know, right? So, you still can move money back into that fund from somewhere else, right?
You could, but I go
So
back.
this is basically insurance policy for the common
It's the sales
council.
tax, though. It's the two things. It's the sales tax that we've been under budgeting for the past 5 or 6 years. That is where the majority of your surplus has come from over the past 5 or 6 years. That's number one. And that was done previous to me purposely to get that fund balance up. And then number two, the unfilled positions that we funded, and this year we defunded all of them. So we've moved the sales tax up to where we think it's going to be, and we have also gotten rid of those funded positions. So those two areas which provided previous surpluses will no longer exist.
She's talking about cushion in the budget.
Yes, it will no longer exist.
And you probably won't know, engineer's not here, but what's the annual maintenance for all these cricks and, beds, water beds that we have to keep maintenance on them?
So
They've never been done yet?
Well,
They
no.
have been.
No.
The last 2 years, until 2019.
No.
Mark, please sum it up. I got one more
Yeah,
question.
we actually had money in capital. It had been done. You didn't see it in the general fund, but it had been done because we had borrowed the money over a series of years, okay? You had approved that, so it didn't come out of the general fund, so you didn't see it. So there was maintenance being done. What wasn't being done was fixing the problems. The majority of this money that's been spent out of the past couple of years out of the general fund is fixing the problem. Now you need to continue maintenance of those issues, right? And I think that's what the councilman's talking about. But we actually have gone in from I mean, just all over the city. We've done things we haven't done before. It's pretty exciting, but there's still some things to be done. There
That's
are.
why you spent $1.2 million
Yes,
over
yes.
2
Joey, hold on, we got one more question
Okay.
for Celeste.
Councilman, can I just have-
One more
No, no,
question,
no,
she's
my
been
turn,
waiting, she's
my
been
turn.
waiting, hold on.
No, I know, after she's.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going back to number 39, so actually this is a question for you, Sam.
Sure.
So, like you were saying, sorry.
Sorry.
Thank you, Brian. You make a better
Both
door
Brians,
than a
there's two
window.
Brians there, easy.
Yes, no, the other Brian was good though, it was okay. So my question, what you were saying a couple minutes ago was, given that you're reducing the total mayoral salary, but that's, given that most likely we're not gonna have a chief of staff until January 1 or something like that next year, so there's still enough in there for, say, the 3 months, it's not 4 months, it's,
Well, it's like $7,000, a little over $7,000 a month. That's to say that that chief of staff starts off at $89,000 a year. I mean, Sonny Gregg
which
will
they
get
may
more.
not.
Right, they may not. I mean, it could be lower, it could be higher, it depends.
So
on-
like what I'm looking at, there's still left in that account 224, which if you subtract the keeping the secretary and keeping the mayor steady, that still leaves, oh, I can't, this might.
29,000.
How much?
29,000 in that account.
There's
224 minus,
4 lines in that account, not 3.
okay, what's the fourth line?
It's
There's
Paul
mayor,
Buckley
chief of staff, development,
and a portion of
administrator,
Paul
and
Buckley's
secretary to the
salary.
mayor.
How much of, so give me a dollar
I
amount.
think it's 50%. You take a
So
look.
give me a dollar amount of Buckley.
We're not in charge of salaries, man.
I know, no,
So,
but she knows what I'm
I
doing.
actually have it open right here.
Yeah.
It's-
You
so
know what I'm
dollar-
asking,
the dollar
Sam.
amount is 62,648. However, you have to take
There's a charge back.
31,324 off.
Goes to
there.
urban
There's a
renewal.
charge back.
Right.
So at the budget meeting, Heather did state that there was $89,000 in there, in that
Right.
account, that budget
Right.
did account for the chief of staff.
So
what I
you know
did
what I'm
was-
asking.
I
All
took
I'm
it-
asking is, let's imagine that I voted with you on this, on number 39. How much money would be left just for a chief of staff
$29,000.
for a 3-month period, which is actually
It would be
more?
to the end of the budget year.
Right, and it's actually more than which is more than 89,000 a year if you prorate it out.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So that's
All right.
fine. I mean, I could have took 89,000 out, but I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that
yeah.
that was fair that if
Yeah.
a new.
I'm good with you on
mayor
number
comes in.
39.
And the only other thing that I just wanted to bring up too, and this is kind of maybe this could help you and Councilman Beach yourself, and I would support it wholeheartedly,
That's it.
depending on how we can go about this. So if you look at our total budget line from last year to this year, it increased from $74,000 to roughly $79,000.
For what?
For our budget that we passed last year, to our budget that we're passing this year. There's
Okay.
been an increase of about $5 million.
Right.
Okay, which is quite a bit of money.
It is.
Considering that increase from prior years. And I do know that some of that supplement came from, obviously increasing sales tax revenue probably to about $3 million. There's another couple of things that we gotta look at too. The fact that, and I think that I looked at it, we might be a few $1,000s off, several $1,000s off is the Bernalini Clubhouse, what we expend for, electricity, so on and so forth, because we won't have that use, and you gotta offset the cost of what the revenue that we would normally be receiving. I kinda thought about it after, kinda washes it, with that said. The only other thing is, we had allocated, when we passed the 5 police officers, with the contingent, with the
ARPA.
through attrition, that we said that they would fund those positions through the budget with the ARPA funding. I think it was like a $250,000 allocation that we did not charge back into this budget. So I think that maybe if you can negotiate between Heather and maybe the city to see if they would be willing to charge back that $250,000, I think that goal of trying to, add that money into that,
Into the contractual stormwater?
into the stormwater line
Yeah,
would be something that we could do.
just to clarify, that 250 from the ARPA was not spent on police officer salaries?
No, I get that, and when I looked at the original ARPA that was allocated, it was $1 million that was allocated originally for
Yes.
that, and in that, it did say that there was $250,000 that would be used.
Yeah.
And when we did pass those 5 positions to be added to the police department, it did say that it was going to be used
Yes,
from
it
the
will
ARPA
come back
fund
in.
towards our
It will
budget.
come back in.
So the only thing that I'm saying is that maybe, instead of funding those positions through the budget, maybe possibly charge back that money and then put that $250,000
But just remember, that's like
into the
a one-shot.
Right.
No,
One
I
second.
get it, and that's what I mean, and then obviously that line would have to be reduced next year, and I think that just needs to be explained.
Right, but the same thing follows though for your.
We need to wrap this up.
Sorry, I know. For your number 39, is it the following year, if we've reduced the mayoral salaries on the grounds that there's not going to be a chief of staff between now and December 31, next year we've got it's a little, but still we have
And my
to.
point is that you can add a budget line right? Like, you could honestly add that, and obviously Heather would have to do that, the council doesn't have the authority to add a budget line, but, I mean, you could add a budget line that says, one-time use for stormwater drain, cleaning, $250,000, with the intent that it could be zeroed out at next year's budget. It's like, kind of like the grant funding that you receive.
All
You
right.
don't receive that grant.
Council
funding.
members, I'd like to wrap this up.
That's it.
We're almost 10 minutes into our next meeting. We have to close now. We have to make our decisions moving forward. Mike, would you mind us taking a 2 to 3 minute break?
Please.
Quarter after.
Got it. Thank you, colleagues.
7:22. We're going to call this meeting of the Common Council to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Aiello, Burmaster, Friend, Miola, Irvin, Beatrice, Williamson, Colosimo, Testa, DeBrango, Galimi, all present.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence for the deceased members of the council. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the first order of business this evening is the reading of the minutes. The minutes have been posted to Eco 360 for the public and council to review. Would we like to read those this evening?
I motion to accept them.
All right. Accept and dispense? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any opposed to accepting and dispensing with the reading of the minutes? Okay, the minutes have been accepted. They are posted for the public to view. We do have a public hearing this evening. We have a public hearing on 4 properties, or 4 ordinances, multiple properties. 1144 Dudley Avenue, 318.74 Johnson Square, the sale of 767 Rucker Street and 905 Belmont Avenue, and the sale of 1649 Nielsen Street. Do we have a motion to remove ordinance 3, the sale of 1144 Dudley Avenue, from committee? Second. We have a motion from Miola, second from DeBrango. Any opposed to pulling that from committee? Okay, ordinance 3 is an ordinance approving the designation of Erasmo Rodriguez and Karina Elizabeth as an eligible and qualified project sponsor pursuant to Article 15 of GML for the purpose of the sale of 1144 Dudley Avenue. It's a sum of $250. The public hearing was just held, and that is from the URA. Your votes.
Nine yeas adopted.
Thank you. Next piece is ordinance 5, the sale of 318.74 Johnson Square. Miola is the motion.
Second.
Williamson is the second. Any opposed to pulling that from committee? Okay. This is an ordinance approving the designation of the JCTOD Outreach Incorporated Johnson Park Center as an eligible and qualified project sponsor pursuant to Article 15 of GML for the purpose of the sale of the property. It's a sum of $250 from the URA. Public hearing which is held. Your votes.
Nine yeas adopted.
A motion to pull ordinance 7 from committee. Motion from Miola, second from Burmaster. Any opposed? It's on the floor. Ordinance approving the designation of Gordana Beslick as an eligible and qualified project sponsor pursuant to Article 15 of GML for the sale of 767 and 905 Belmont Ave. It's a sum of $30,000 from the URA to Gordana Beslick. Public hearing which is held. Your votes.
Nine yeas adopted.
Motion for ordinance 9. Miola? Friend? Is a second. No one's opposed to pulling that from committee, so the ordinance approving the designation of Mo Kya and Hla Win as an eligible and qualified project sponsor pursuant to Article 15 of GML for the purpose of the sale of 1649 Nielsen Street. It's on the floor for a vote. It's a sum of $55,000 from the URA to the listed buyers. Your votes.
Nine yeas adopted.
Okay, that closes the public hearing portion of the meeting. We're on to public comment period. We only have one person signed up this evening to speak. It is Tom Carcone. Oh, actually, we didn't list this, but the public hearing for the budget is tonight.
Yes.
So is there anyone in this room who has come to speak on behalf of our annual estimate of 23-24? Okay, public hearing of the budget is closed. Moving on. Public comment period. Thomas Carcone, please come forward. The Common Council has provided you a copy of Section 3244 Public Comment Period Rule. Are you in agreement with this?
Yes.
State your name for the record and you may begin.
Tom Carcone. So I was here, I watched the other night over the YouTube video, Corporation Counsel Bill Borrow was down here speaking as to the contract and the award of self-insurance with the city employees at one of your budget meetings. I just want to share something with you guys from my concerns with that meeting. The city shall have the right to, this is from our contract, a contract between the city of Utica and the employees of the city of Utica Fire Department, Local 32. The city shall have the right to propose changes to different health insurance plans and dental insurance plans, including self-insurance plan, that one described in paragraph 2 above, to the extent that another plan provided substantially similar coverage is more cost-effective. Any proposed change is subject to agreement of the parties. You are in a self-insurance plan, and there has not been agreements of the parties. That defines itself. It's not about, I heard people say, the rabbit hole of who's not coming to an agreement, which side is being difficult in contract negotiations. There is no agreement, and they changed to self-insurance anyways. That specifically violates any proposed changes subject to agreements of the parties. And the bottom line is that change should have never took place until an agreement was reached. So it's not who's holding it up, it's why did the city violate the contract and move forward without an agreement being reached. So therefore, they violated our CBA, and Mr. Borrell from Corporation Counsel sat in front of you and told you it was actually our strategy and we knew we would lose in PERB. That means that the city of Utica is intentionally violating a contract with the city of Utica's name in it, with the city of Utica entered into, and not in a fair good faith, in hard-written contract language, with signatures of the mayor of this city, for the city of Utica. Now I'll read a part from the general provision, arbitration. The decision of the arbitrator shall be final, conclusive, and binding upon all parties. This is a contract that the city entered into, signed to. So not only did they go to self-insurance and violate the contract that they signed into knowingly as a strategy, it clearly states here the findings of the arbitrator are conclusive and binding, and they intend to take it to the highest courts to challenge it, violating it once again. So when you talk about Corporation Counsel, who I thought was an entity that looks out for the best interest and the guidance for the city of Utica and not for the mayor personally, where is it that the Corporation Counsel is not advising the mayor to respect and honor agreements that this city of Utica has signed into, that his name is attached to? Instead, they're strategizing how to violate it, knowing that they violated it, and when they found they violated it, they're going to violate it again by taking it to the highest courts. I know that is not the best representation of the taxpayers or their will to go and enter an agreement that you're knowingly, as a strategy, going to violate after you sign. That's unacceptable. That is not what Corporation Counsel is supposed to be representing. They're supposed to be representing the people of the city of Utica and the name, the city of Utica, that is on this binding contract. Are your taxpayers requesting that they violate agreements that they enter, legal contracts that they enter? Why is Corporation Counsel not advising them to abide by what they've signed and agreed to? That means you should never be in self-insurance. It's not about who's not willing to go now. It doesn't happen without a new agreement. Secondly, live by the arbitrator's award as our contract tells you to. Don't continue to violate the contract and more dishonor the city of Utica name that's on here when you're employed and paid by its taxpayers. You're all representatives of the city of Utica. You should take the personal responsibility to abide by this contract also. And fight to uphold anything that's entered into on the city of Utica with its employees, which you're all supposed to have a responsibility to too. So with that being said, you have the budget in front of you. You know it's an inaccurate budget because they continue to violate our contract and there's a cost involved to it. You know it's a budget that doesn't have increases for the firefighters in there. I'm not asking you to ruin your political reputations and amend a 0% increase and then be attacked when you run for mayoralship. I'm asking you to vote the budget down in its entirety for being incorrect, and in the fact that the city of Utica entered an agreement. You represent the city of Utica, and you will not push on and put your name to something that you know it violates. That you put the increase and the costs associated to our raises and associated to all its city employees going back to fully funded into the budget. If it's not into the budget, send it back to the mayor for him to put it on himself instead of putting your names and attaching it to something you know violates the city of Utica. That's what I'm asking you to do, is vote it down in its entirety and send it back until it includes our raises and until it's got us all back into a fully funded plan where we belong. I don't even care if we get an agreement at this point. I've sent my letter to all of you with our proposal. It's reasonable. The police PBA president wrote that it was less than what they received and that he's requesting that the mayors come to an agreement with us. It's being ignored. It's being ignored. We'll do your jobs and hold them accountable and send it back to them until the proper amounts are entered into the agreement or into the budget and until they honor the contracts that they sign their name to. Corporation Council's giving you that advice. They got their raises. My men are on the top of a building on Mandeville taking 15 people out of a building, 3 off of a roof, and then crawling through hypodermic needles to search for more. And we haven't gotten a raise since 2020. It's unacceptable. If you guys represent the city of Utica, the name is on this contract. Don't go forward with a budget that doesn't honor it, because you're disrespecting the name of the city itself. Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes public comment period. Thank you, Mr. Carcone. We don't have any guests this evening. We're moving on to reports from the city officers. Corporation Counsel, Stephanie Giorgio.
Nothing to report.
Captain Bass. Chief Ingersoll.
We had a large fire Sunday evening. I'm sure many of you are aware. Firefighters rescued 3 people from the exterior of the building of the roofs. They also searched extensively through that building under heavy fire conditions, looking for people that that several people outside insisted were inside. We spent a lot of time searching for these people. Fortunately, after spending almost 24 hours at that fire scene, we were not able to find anybody else left in that building. So this fire just highlights some of the issues that we're having with vacant structures, homeless population, and people that don't have a place to go. Quite frankly, we were not surprised that this building came in as for a reported fire, nor were we surprised that there was over 15 people in that building at the time. It's simply luck that it wasn't a multiple fatal fire. We were lucky that firefighters weren't injured during this operation. We were immediately taxed with what we found, the conditions that we found on arrival. Had it not been for some early intervention, the outcome could have been much worse. And we're grateful for the firefighters, their health and safety, making it through that fire. We did spend, like I said, we spent almost 24 hours at that fire scene, digging through the rubble after. We brought in Office of Fire Prevention and Control to assist us in the fire investigation. We brought in a K-9 accelerant sniffing dog to assist in the investigation. Due to the amount of hypodermic needles that were strewn throughout the structure, we were unable to utilize the dog. But we found some serious conditions in there. I ask anybody that notices buildings that are unsecured, that people are in and out of, to please contact either the Codes Department, the Police Department, the Fire Department. We're working to try to identify these buildings. It is a tragedy in the making, and I would like to do whatever we can to avoid that collectively as a community. Thank you.
Thank you. Budget Director. Thank you. Moving on. We do have a cash report.
City of Utica cash report for February 2023 is 55.081 million received and filed.
Thank you. Petitions, remonstrances, and appeals, First District. Councilmember Katie Aiello, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Yeah, I just want to start by saying thank you to all the first responders on Sunday night with the fire on Mandyville. I was out there from about 5:30 to 10:30 with 20 different people or so who escaped the fire, needed help. Just want to say thank you to the firefighters, UPD, Rescue Mission, Red Cross, DSS, ICANN, and then of course the Morrow Center, who has took in people the last 2 nights now. I can't stress it enough though that the Rescue Mission is a great option for so many people, but one solution isn't enough. If we don't create more shelter options for people, they will continue to make their own, like we saw at 422 Mandyville. And that's a conversation for a bigger day, another day. And I'm excited. I will be meeting with our county executive this week to talk about more options and my concerns with that. But just again, thank you to the first responders, and I'm glad everybody made it out safe. That's all tonight.
Thank you. Second District, Councilmember Robert Burmaster, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't have anything tonight.
Thank you. Third District, Councilmember Celeste Friend.
Thank you, Mr. President. I guess I just wanted to repeat, reinforce what Councilwoman Aiello said. Thank goodness none of our firefighters were hurt. That is a good thing. And thank goodness that none of the people living in that structure were hurt. I think it's amazing how many people you were able to pull out of and get out of that building under those conditions of people fleeing to the roof, etc. We need a low barrier shelter in this town, and we need a navigation center which can help to house people as quickly as possible. The city recently commissioned a homelessness study by Gwen Dordick, a researcher out of New York City. And the city commissioned this study, and the results of it were really interesting. One of the results of the study was that we as a city can get to 0 in terms of homeless population if we sort of follow the best data and the best practices that other cities are following. We could get to actually having no homeless people, no unhoused people, and that means no one living in buildings like this, no one forced to live in such unsafe conditions that they, perhaps that they might accidentally, create conditions that are even more unsafe. So I really think that we need to move as quickly as possible towards that navigation center. The county needs to move as quickly as possible towards a low barrier shelter. We need to take housing first seriously, if for no other reason than because it is less expensive to house people first than it is to take care of people who are unhoused. So that's all I have. Again, thanks to the Utica Fire Department. Well done. Thank you. That's all I have this evening, Mr. President.
Thank you. Fourth District and Majority Leader, Frank Miola, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to echo a lot of my colleagues and Chief Scott Ingersoll's statements. It's about getting these people help. It's about neighbors notifying us about the use of these buildings. Please, make a call. If you don't feel any results come from calling the codes department, make a call to your council member. These people need help. Second thing is that these people accept the help. A lot of times they do go to these shelters, they stay a short time there and go back to those houses on Maynardville Street, all over the place around the city, the vacant homes. So even if we have to keep on helping these people to show them a better life away from the needles that they're probably utilizing, I do believe our first step is to know that they're there. I'm hoping that there's some record of any type of codes violations or people in the neighborhood noticing these people. If not, we're going to have a system here. The codes department to notify the county, who does have people to assist these people in need, and we can move forward. I understand that a lot of them, once they get into the system, they want to leave, and there's nothing we can do about it. So the only thing we can try to do, once again and redundantly, is have those neighbors who really care about their neighborhood give us a call when these buildings are being utilized. As our chief said, it's very, very important. Without us knowing, we can't help them. So those of us who are out there in those streets and they see these things happening in those empty buildings, please call the city. We will get those people help. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. 5th District, Councilmember Venice Irvin.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just like all the rest of the councilmen, people, I would like to thank the police department for the great job they did, that we had no fatalities. A lot of departments are suffering through, fires, that there are fatalities of firefighters and residents of their city, so thank you for doing a great job. The work in Johnson Park is moving along very swiftly. I don't know how them guys work in the code, but they got a couple foundations going on a couple of the buildings. Fortunately for us, the one that the fire department was practicing on is gone. They ripped down 4 buildings in the community, and they're rebuilding them. They're gonna rebuild some nice housing for women, and I think it's gonna be for seniors and other people in some of the apartments. So that's all I had is they are moving along very swiftly, and those guys are doing a great job.
Thank you. 6th District, Councilman Joe Beatrice, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mr. President. I have nothing tonight.
Thank you. Councilman at Large, Minority Leader Mark Williamson, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a shout out to the DPW. I think they did a great job. I got no complaints about the roads. I think they did a great job. So
Yes, they did. I have to.
that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman at Large, Samantha Colosimo Testi.
I've got nothing this evening, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman at Large, President Pro Temp Frank DeBrango.
Thank you, Mr. President. I see emotional person up there that was speaking tonight, Tom Carcone, and I understand his frustration. But when the council is presented with a 0% budget, I understand he's trying to predict the future and everybody else is trying to predict the future here. But we have a couple of choices. One, do you cut personnel if you feel that the budget's going to be $2.5, $3 million, $4 million over? Or do we just leave it and just vote on this thing and just bring it back to the mayor and say, Mayor, straighten it out? I don't think we can do that. I think we can't predict the future. I think we have to not put the burden on the taxpayers. There's enough problems out there with people trying to make ends meet. And if you want to raise taxes, it's going to be very difficult for some of these people in the city of Utica to handle that with the price of, with inflation and everything else going on. So we're in a tough predicament, but, for me, I'm not going to vote against the 0% tax increase. And I think anybody on this council who votes for 0%, and I know you supported it, Mr. President, not to vote for 0%, I don't know. They'll have to live with it, I guess. But if they want to raise taxes or cut jobs, say it. Say it tonight. But we have to make a decision. If it's not tonight, it'll be Monday. So we are going to do that, and whatever happens tonight regarding the vote, so be it. The other thing, as far as the Mandeville Street, we do have homelessness. Obviously, we do that. I noticed the governor, when she spoke about her budget, she was going to allocate some money and try to open up some care centers throughout the state. And I did speak to Assemblyperson Mary Ann Buttonshaw regarding that. And maybe we can open up, the psychiatric center again. We have a lot of property over there that's unused. We talked about it. We spoke about it. She did tell me that they will be, if this budget does pass, they will be taking a tour. She invited me to take the tour. So maybe that's a start of getting some of these people the proper care they need. So, only time will tell, but we will, when that time comes, I'll let the council members know, and if everybody wants to take a walk through there, we will, and see if we can do, and maybe could help this community. Because if the state's going to pay for it, it's going to create jobs, it's going to help the homelessness, and give them the proper care that they need. So I'm hoping that will come sooner rather than later. All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Okay, we're moving on to legislation this evening. Proposed resolution number 1, and I have 2 copies of something. Proposed resolution number 1 needs someone to move. It is a Commissioner of Deeds for David L. Testa. Friend is the motion, Neal is the second. Be it resolved that the Common Council does hereby approve the following person eligible for appointment to Commissioner of Deeds in and for the City of Utica, New York, within the term ending December 31st, 2024. David L. Testa, your votes.
Nine yeas adopted.
Okay. Next piece is an ordinance, E&A transfer for a sum of $40,000 to adjust for the planning costs of repairs over Balloon Creek on Bleecker Street. Would someone like to move this? Friend is moving it. Neal is the second. Be it ordained, the city controller is hereby authorized and directed to make the following transfer of funds. Your votes.
9 yeas adopted.
Thank you. Next piece is an ordinance, number 3. It's another E&A transfer. Neal is the first. Seconds to Brango. To adjust for unexpected expense associated with a retirement and associated Social Security, as well as other expenses related to foreclosures. Sum of $24,000 from controller software to other associated accounts. Your votes.
Nine yeas adopted.
Proposed ordinance 4 is an ordinance amending the composition of the Bureau of Fire, changing firefighter, paramedic, and firefighter EMT from 81 to 84, changing the total complement from a sum of 124 to 127. This is Miola moving this, and there's a lot of seconds on the floor. I'm going to go with Fred. She had her hand up first. This is an ordinance, and this is the first time we're seeing this, so it needs unanimous approval. Your votes.
Nine yeas adopted.
Okay. The first piece, this is actually an ordinance amending the budget. So this is proposed ordinance number 5, sponsored by Councilperson Friend. Do we have a second? We have a second from Aiello. This is a Common Council FY 2023-2024 modification to the E&A approved annual estimate. Be it ordained that the annual estimate is hereby amended as follows. Non-property tax items, account A403, 111001, city sales tax, be amended to read $18.7 million to $18.85 million. The change is $150,000. That is increasing the infrastructure line A57130-441, contractual stormwater. The rationale is to adequately prepare to reduce risk of flooding. We do have a motion and a second on this, so.
Can I make sure, that Mr. Beatrice wanted to be on this legislation as a sponsor, correct?
Yes.
Okay, we'll add Beatrice as a sponsor. This is either up for a vote or it'll be placed in committee. So are we voting?
Can I speak to the bill quickly?
The ordinance, yes.
Ordinance.
Yep.
I just want to repeat what I said before, and I also think repeat some of the things that Mr. Beatrice said. We need to be proactive about flooding mitigation. This isn't the time to relax. We've done great work over the last few years. We need to keep up with that, not go back into a reactive mode, but rather be in a proactive mode. We also need to defend the investments that taxpayers have already made by doing the necessary maintenance year in, year out. We need to make sure that our residents and that we as a city don't suffer undue costs by not maintaining the system. This is money well spent. And I also think it's perfectly reasonable to estimate that our sales tax revenue will be just a tiny bit higher than has been predicted in the budget before us, from 18.7 million to 18.85. That's less than 1% of difference. And we have underestimated sales tax for years and years and years. So I think it's perfectly reasonable with all the development going on to reasonably predict that the sales tax will be up just enough to cover this necessary investment in maintaining our infrastructure.
Before I hand Councilman Miola the floor, I'm gonna call an actual debate on this amendment, so no one vote this time, okay? These aren't qualifications, this is actual commentary. Councilman Miola.
Mr. President, I'd just like to say, when there's a need, the city comes forward. At this time, there is $100,000 more than that into this account. So there's more money needed for maintenance. Of course, the wizard, our budget director, will find a place where there might be some extra money. She has a very tight budget, and thank you very much for it. It's challenging our department heads. It's very tight. To add on to the sales tax, I guess that's objective right now, but I do believe that if we do need additional maintenance for our sewers and storm drains and whatever from our rainwater, like we did last time in North Utica, we put that pond in North Utica. That wasn't budgeted. There was a need. We found the money. Heather followed through on it. We got it done. So, with that said, I'd like to. I'm going to be voting down this proposal because I do believe that if there's a need, the city will come through with it. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, so before we move on, I just want to state where we are. For certain people, this is the second budget. Certain people, this is the first budget. We have this amendment, which usually we do this kind of in a package, right? So, and then there's also some other amendments that are in this packet that we would deal with. As it stands, we had the budget hearing, public hearing, so the budget at this point can be voted on. The way we introduced the budget originally, the budget does not need unanimous approval because the budget was introduced on the floor already. It is an ordinance, so it has been, quote, seen and heard. So the budget tonight only requires 5 votes, but all the ordinances that are introduced tonight will require unanimous approval. Now, as everyone on the floor knows, there will be a meeting called, a provisional meeting at 5 o'clock on the 20th. So that if for some, I just want to make sure everyone understands all their options here. If these amendments need to go into committee and you feel that the budget can wait until Monday because you want to potentially discuss these and think about these amendments till Monday, that is also an option of the council. Just want to make sure everyone understands all of their options before we move on. I would also suggest that if we're discussing this amendment right now, we take the other amendments that are in this packet and move them to the head right now and discuss all the amendments at the same time sequentially. All right, council person, you have.
Sure, I guess that was my question. I mean, I have to leave in a little while, and I guess I was questioning, are we planning on voting on the budget tonight? Because I think that if we have a meeting Monday, there still could be the possibility of budget amendments that could come in over the weekend. I mean,
That is true,
I
but
don't
at
know,
that
and I
point,
guess,
those
so
amendments
I guess
would
that,
need-
can I find out that if we're voting on the budget, that we need to find out if we're voting on the budget tonight?
I'm going to speak in likelihood right now. If an amendment were to come in over the weekend, that amendment would have no choice other than to be approved by unanimous at Monday's
Oh,
meeting, because
100%.
Monday is the last legal
Right,
day
and
we
that's,
can pass this
I guess,
budget.
so I guess, can we ask if the budget will be, if there's a plan to vote on the budget tonight? I think that would be the question.
The only way,
I ask
the
for
only way we can
clarification?
ask that, the only way we can ask that is by calling that ordinance forward and having the debate.
Point
So
of
you have to
information.
move through the amendments first.
Point of
Yeah.
information. This one that we're discussing now needs 5 votes to pass.
Correct, sorry.
Right. The others that were introduced would need 9?
Yeah.
Yes, because it's the
Yeah.
first time they're introduced.
Yeah.
So I guess that was my question. I didn't know that we had any intention to vote on I thought we would have had maybe a budget discussion on our budget amendments together, not that just at the
That
prior
will
meeting. So I
be
guess
that as it may, that's not the
I would
case.
like to ask the council, and I guess I'll make a motion to bring the budget to the floor to kind of see where we're at, because I'm not gonna, I mean, I would like to, obviously, this is gonna be a longer meeting, because Heather's gonna have to go in and figure out new numbers. for the tax increase if the budget amendment for the $150,000
No,
passes?
the way,
No,
Just-
just announce it, you didn't.
the way
you
all
didn't-
of these amendments are written.
Oh, because it would
wouldn't
still-
change
Annual
It would
estimate
still-
could pass as it is.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna take the floor back.
Sure, go ahead.
Because one, I just was taking that as an assumption because it's already in the packet. We already introduced this one. The amendment we're dealing with right now only needs 5 votes. All the
No,
others.
that's first time ordinance, it needs unanimous.
No, I introduced it at the last meeting.
Number 5 was in committee?
Yep,
Yeah.
It needs 5.
Which,
I was on the ball.
it ended up in the packet somehow. That's why there's confusion.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's ended up in.
Because it was in the committee of the whole.
Right. I introduced this already, right.
I don't remember putting committee, I'm sorry.
I don't remember putting it in committee either.
Drew, when did I submit this?
I remember discussing it. You discussed it.
I discussed it at a budget meeting, but not at a council meeting. You're correct.
That's what I was saying, because this is in the packet.
It needs unanimous.
So I'm now with Sam. I'd like to have a meeting
Yeah.
on Monday.
No,
Well, I mean, no, I mean, honestly, it's
No, in
not,
all
it's-
seriousness,
I
No,
mean,
no, I mean-
because guess what? I mean, it doesn't make a difference if you need an unanimous or not.
So,
I would just like
let
to
me-
know
let
if
me
we were
pull-
voting
let
on
me
the
pull the
budget
floor.
tonight.
Can I just state my confusion? I introduced this, I put this in the packet
Right.
in time for us to discuss it at a
But not on the
budget
floor.
meeting.
That's my point, not on the floor.
Yep.
Right, so, moving on.
Because there were still some questions I guess I had towards
Yeah, but
the budget
op-
as well.
That's the budget debate. If we want to have a debate on the budget, that's fine. I'm just discussing the options here. As I stated, the budget requires 5 votes. Everything else is 9, as I originally stated. And we will have that meeting on the 20th. So as we move forward, if people are considering still discussing this and want to think about it more, you have to put these in committee. Otherwise, these amendments are going to come to a vote, and we're going to just see what happens.
So can
okay?
we could put all these in committee, Sam's ordinances, my ordinance, and the budget itself, the annual estimate itself,
Well,
could
that's
all go into committee tonight. We could have a short meeting on Monday. Correct? Is
Well,
that?
that's what the provisional meeting is for.
Right,
So
correct.
that at this meeting, if there's no final decision,
Usually-
we don't default.
Right.
Usually what we would do is we
Good
would
with
have a
that.
meeting the day before. We had our actual council meeting, and that wasn't scheduled, so that's why we have it on Monday, because this is when you make your introduction for your amendments. And that's the problem.
Right.
Mr. President, you can't submit any more amendments after tonight. If you're gonna have another meeting and you don't get a motion tonight to pass the budget and get 5 votes, there is no meeting on the 20th. If you have other amendments and you didn't submit them tonight and you put these in committee and you have a meeting on Monday, you can consider them. And again, then they'll only need 5 votes. So the option you have is, I think, for Councilwoman Testa, there are no more amendments after tonight.
Unless I get
Because-
unanimous.
Unless you get
have 2
unanimous.
more meetings. And I don't know if anybody wants to have 2 more.
Technically, you could have if you had a unanimous vote on Monday on an amendment.
You could pass an
Correct.
amendment.
You could do it from the
Highly
floor if you
unlikely.
wanted.
Of course,
Highly unlikely.
if you get an unanimous vote tonight on an amendment, it's amended. But I don't know, you have
on
the
Monday.
option procedurally to do whatever you wish. You want to have another meeting? Fine, but you can't have new amendments for the Monday meeting.
Correct.
Only if you're
So-
unanimous, yes, you can have.
Only
This
if you
is-
could.
You never know, I might get a nice tip
They
over
would
the
just
weekend.
have
where
to
I
be
was-
unanimous. We're good.
All right, so moving on. All right, so, as I stated, before we move on with this first amendment consideration, if this comes to a vote,
So I would
the
like to
cards will lay on the table.
I would like to rescind my motion and place it in committee instead.
Okay, so you've rescinded your motion to move this, and you would like to make a motion to place this in committee.
Yes, I'd like to refer this to committee, please, Mr. President.
Well, there's a second to place this in committee.
Call for a vote, Mr. President.
Your votes on placing this amendment in committee.
We don't have to use our.
I would use, no, this is budget.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it,
This
even
is
for the committees.
This
yeah.
is for placing number 5 into committee, correct?
Well, no, it's placing, where is it? Yeah, number 5, here it is.
Number 5. You're with us, you got it.
Number 5 into committee. Frank, there we go.
Okay, it's in committee. Yeah, all right, so there's 5. Now, what I'd like to do is request that someone move ordinance 37.
Sure. I'll make a motion to move ordinance number 37 into committee.
Second.
Okay, so ordinance 37 is an amendment, reducing the general contingency fund, account A5999-99, from $250,000 to $180,000 for a change of $70,000 less. The purpose of this, the rationale is to supplement contract proposal for HSSHS, that's Stevens Swan Humane Society contract.
If you put one in committee, why don't you put the rest of them in committee?
So would someone like to make that motion?
Sure, I'll make the motion.
Second.
Okay, your votes on placing that in committee?
Just this one?
All of them.
All three of them.
No. Each one at a
That's the
time.
motion that he made to place all three into committee. And he said, are we
Well,
gonna do
he said
that?
you might as well, and then I called for motion to place this
Okay,
in
all right,
committee.
okay.
And that's the motion.
Okay, all right, we'll do
Yeah,
one at a time.
Thank you.
We can't pass this tonight?
If you had unanimous approval.
I put in committee, Frank.
9 votes in committee.
All right. Proposed ordinance 38.
I'd like to make a motion to refer this to committee, please, Mr. President.
Is there a second?
And just for the record, we could vote on them tonight, but they still have to have a supporting document to show
Well,
where
this
that
is
money's
like
coming
pitch,
from.
Right? There's no cross-boarding. until
I'm
the
just,
vote,
I'm just
so,
saying that even if we did pass
you
any
know.
of these, that we couldn't, because we have to have supporting monetary amounts to go in those accounts.
Okay.
No,
the second on
no,
this?
they're a wash.
Who's the second?
Right.
Who is the second?
I'll second.
We got Al. Your votes on this going to the committee.
9 yeas in committee.
Okay. Proposed ordinance 39, which is reducing the mayor's salaries line.
Make a
Not the
motion to
mayor's
commit,
salary,
please,
but the
Mr.
mayor's
President.
salaries line.
Motion to commit, please.
All right, we got a lot of seconds. Let's go with the Burmaster.
And I just want to, for clarification purposes, Heather, can you clarify that even with that reduction of that line, the salary line does not change, like in that line? It's just not budgeted for that much?
Do you mean for the person who would be
Yes.
hired as of
Yes.
January 1st
Yes.
timeframe?
There's enough left for 3 months.
The org chart would stay the same.
That's what I mean. So the monetary
Yes.
amount would stay the same, so
Yes.
that going forward would still be in next year's budget at that $89,000
Yes.
salary.
Just
You're
not-
just reducing
just not
that budget
funded.
line, that
Just
won't
not
be
funded
funded. Okay.
completely.
Okay.
Thank you.
Your votes on placing this in committee.
Yeah, let's get some.
I had to. Okay. Mr. President, can I make a motion that we also place the annual estimate into committee, please?
It's already in there.
The annual estimate
Oh.
is in committee. But let's, here we go.
Sorry.
Would you
9
like
yeas
to-
in committee.
Would you like to make a
I mean,
motion
none
to
of the
keep it in
amount's gonna
committee?
change it, so.
Right.
All right, what I'm gonna do right now is move on to the rest of the legislation, and then we'll see what happens. I'm only driving the bus. All right.
Johnson Street, number 6.
Proposed resolution number 6 is a resolution providing for the publication of proposal to rename Johnson Square to Johnson Park. Do we have a date on this?
We're supposed to call for a public hearing, and the date was set to?
May 3rd, I believe.
Do we want to go with May 3rd? All right, we're calling for a public hearing. Be it resolved that the city clerk is hereby directed to publish the proposed ordinance in the official newspaper, of the city of Utica once in each of the next 2 successive weeks. Now, that's why I asked, because we mentioned 6 weeks.
It's gotta go to planning board.
Very good. Okay, so the 2 weeks will happen after.
They can, it doesn't matter, it's just calling for the notice of calling.
Yeah, this
for
is not the one we're talking
No,
about.
you just call, this one you get passed, is calling for a public hearing.
We're good.
Motion to move, Mr. President.
Yeah. This is just the motion providing for publication.
Yeah.
So, your votes.
Is there a second?
Who was the second?
I did.
Yeah.
Cool.
There we go.
9 yeas adopted.
That was the P square debate.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Screwed it up there. Proposed ordinance 7 probably needs to go into committee.
Motion to move. to
Thank you very
commit.
much. Anyone? Anyone? Second? All right, we got Samantha, second there. Anyone opposed to placing this in committee? Is it in committee?
What is it, number 7?
That was number 7. Proposed resolution number 8 is a Commissioner of Deeds for
Motion to
Anthony
move.
Garamo.
Second.
My privilege to motion to move.
All right, we got Miola and Friend. Be it resolved, the Common Council does hereby approve the following person eligible for appointment to the Commissioner of Deeds in and for the City of Utica, New York, within the term ending December 31st, 2024. Your votes.
9 yeas adopted.
Okay, got some solid waste service charges. This is resolution number 9. We'll need someone to move this. Miola.
Second.
From Friend. Be it resolved, the Common Council of the City of Utica hereby approves the applications for adjustment to the City of Utica solid waste service charge for the fiscal year 22-23 as follows. There's an attached list. There's just one adjustment. Your votes.
Nine yeas adopted.
This piece has a memo. It is the resolution providing for a public hearing on the discontinuance of Cornelia Street from Lafayette Street to Oriskany Street. Someone like to move this?
Moved.
All right, Viola, Friend.
Do we have a date?
This is the May 3rd.
This is the 6th week.
So May 30th?
May
May
3rd.
3rd.
It's
May
the
3rd.
first council meeting of May.
May 3rd.
So,
It's
7
It's
p.m.
7 p.m.
So this will be called May 3rd, 2023, 7 p.m. Further resolved that the properties to be considered for discontinuance for street purposes is hereby described as follows. It is a bunch of latitude and longitude. What's the May 3rd? May 3rd.
May 3rd?
May 3rd. Okay, there's an attached map. The council's reviewed it in. Do we have a motion?
Yes.
Okay. In a second. Your votes.
Nine yeas adopted.
Mr.
All right.
President, I'd like to commit ordinance number 11 is the sale of Cornelia Street, sir.
Second.
Thank you. Clerk, can you please just make sure we fill in the May 3rd date on the, any opposed? It's in committee, clear the board as well. All right, we have a swath of properties. So the first is resolution number 12. It is sponsored by Aiello. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, Burmaster's the second. It's calling for a public hearing on the sale of 120 to 136, 142 to 146, 150, and 228 to 228 Liberty Street. This is a purchase price of $80,000 to Mohawk Valley Garden Corporation from the Urban Renewal Authority. The public hearing will be April 5th, 2023, 7 p.m. If you pass the resolution, your votes.
9 yeas adopted.
Okay, the public hearing is called. Proposed ordinance 13 is the paired
Refer to
ordinance to sell
committee,
the
please. Refer to committee, please.
Burmaster's the second. Good committee. Resolution 14 calling for a public hearing on the sale of 822 Waverly Place. It is a sum of $40,000 to Bashir Elzdani. Again, April 5th will be the public hearing.
Sponsored by Councilman Burmaster?
Yeah, and we have a second from Aiello. Thank you. Your votes on the public hearing.
9 yeas adopted.
We have a motion to commit to the next piece.
Motion to commit, please.
All right, ordinance 15, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, Burmaster's the second. Any opposed? It's in committee. All right, moving on to the stop sign part of the packet.
One at a time, boys, one at a time. Hit him, give Mr. President, go
I'm
for it.
bummed that Jim's not here.
Could I make a motion to waive the Thursday rule for these pieces of legislation coming up?
Second, Mr. President.
These don't require that. Yeah, so I'm actually not gonna process the motion because it's in our rules of order that we don't need to
okay.
do that for this, so.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
it says yes. Okay,
Yeah, it's all right.
fine.
It's okay. This one is sponsored by Councilmember Urban. Intersection where stops required for Arthur Street and Nielsen Street, four-way stop at each intersection. Mule is the second. Ordinance 16, your votes.
Nine yeas adopted.
Ordinance 17, sponsored by Councilmember Urban. This is Arthur Street and Howard Avenue, four-way stop at each intersection.
Just put me on 2 for all of them so we can move by it, would you please?
I gotta hear it.
All right.
I mean,
2.
it's- you raise your hand, something. All right. Your votes.
9 A's adopted.
Ordinance number 18, again, Councilmember Urban, second from Miola. Arthur Street and Miller Street before we stop at each intersection.
Nine A's adopted.
Very good. Ordinance 19, Councilmember Urban, second from Miola. This is Square Street and Conkling Avenue, southwest corner of Square Street. Your votes.
9 A's adopted.
And if anyone's questioning this, it does say the proper legislation is now in place. All right. Ordinance 20. Councilmember Urban's moving this, second from Miola. Square Street and Seymour Avenue, four-way stop at each intersection. Your votes.
9 A's adopted.
Opposed to ordinance 21, Urban again. Miola's the second. This one actually
There's a strike on it.
is a total removal, so this is a rescind. It's amended to read the follows, but we're striking that line from the code. So your votes.
Nine A's adopted.
Ordinance 22, Councilmember Urban, second from Miola. Nielsen Street and Square Street, northwest and northeast corners. Your votes. Schedule C.
9 A's adopted.
Intersections for stop. All right, we're done with that portion of the packet this evening. We're moving on to resolution number 23, resolution providing for a public hearing on a zoning text amendment. Now therefore be it resolved that we will have a public hearing on April 5th, 2023, at 7 p.m.
Motion to move, Mr. President.
Okay? Second from Durango. Your votes.
9 A's adopted.
And if the public is listening, the planning board meeting will be on March 16th, 2023. Okay. Resolution 24 is a rescind and replace the designation of official newspaper, sponsored by ILO.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to commit.
Amend it, please.
You want to amend it now?
Yeah, might as well.
Oh, sure. I'll make a motion to amend, change Rome Sentinel to say Daily Sentinel.
So, do we have a second before we amend? All right, Friend is the second, and now there's a motion to amend. And can you please repeat the amendment? Sorry.
Oh, and actually, we're supposed to do the date right now?
Yes.
Yes.
December 31st, 2023.
So, do two separate amendments then.
All right, so what is your first amendment?
To change the Rome Sentinel to say, to read the Daily Sentinel.
Okay. Is there a second to that? Okay, Burmaster's the second. Any opposed? All right, that amendment carries. Second amendment is, instead of for the ensuing 2 years, for the term ending December 31st, 2024.
Yes.
Motion to
No,
amend.
23.
Oh, I'm sorry, 2023. Sorry.
Yes.
I almost said.
Go with that.
Do we have a second?
Second? Oh, yeah.
All right.
So, okay.
Any opposed to the amendment? Okay, let's through this here.
Now
would you
motion to
like
commit.
this?
Now, yes, a motion to commit, please.
Thank you.
Thank
Who's
you.
the second?
DeBringo.
Okay, any opposed? It's in committee. All right. Now, we have some choices to make, apparently.
That's it.
We can put all these in committee, correct?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Right?
Well, so I do have a question. Because these are separated
No, I thought
from
we
the
didn't.
packet that I'm typically going through every evening. So these are the exact same amendments that are all in committee?
Yep.
Yeah.
Samantha,
And we're certain?
Samantha and Celeste Friend, the only ones that submitted amendments, so all of them.
No, you're talking about he's talking about the zoning amendments, not the budget amendments.
That's what I'm talking.
The zoning amendments, we like to submit them as a bulk, all into committee, if you don't mind, Mr. President.
So 25 through 33 and 34 through
Oh, I understand what I'm
36.
looking at.
Yeah.
I just need someone to introduce each one and commit them.
You wanna do one at a time?
Yeah.
Okay. No problem.
All right. We don't have to read them all. All right. So just, if someone wants to go through the packet and make a motion, introduce each one of these and place it in committee.
I'd like to make a motion to introduce, proposed ordinance number 25, to amend section 2297C. I'd like to make a motion to commit that, please.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Muehl's is the second. Any opposed? Okay, 25 is in committee.
I'd like to make a motion to commit to committee ordinance amending section 2297C, ordinance
26.
number 26.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion.
Anyone opposed?
Nope.
It's in committee.
I'd like to make a motion to commit ordinance number 27, ordinance amending section 2297C.
Second, Mr. President.
Thank you. Any opposed? Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to commit ordinance number 28, ordinance amending section 2-297C.
Motion to, second.
Okay, it's in committee.
I'd like to make a motion to commit ordinance number 29, ordinance amending zoning code use table for neighborhood convenience store.
Second, Mr. President.
No one's opposed. It's in committee.
I'd like to make a motion to commit ordinance number 30, ordinance amending zoning code use table for specialty food stores.
Second to commit, Mr. President.
No one's opposed. It's in committee.
I'd like to make a motion to commit ordinance number 31, ordinance amending zoning code use table for smoke shops.
Peace
Second
smoke
to commit,
shops.
Mr. President.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to commit ordinance number 32, ordinance amending section 229346 of the City Utica Code of Ordinances.
Second to commit, Mr. President.
No one's opposed. It's in committee.
I'd like to make a motion to commit ordinance number 33, ordinance amending section 214 of the Utica City Code of Ordinances.
Second to commit, Mr. President.
Okay.
That's
Got three more.
Go up 34,
Okay,
35,
okay.
and
I'd like to
36.
make a motion to commit proposed ordinance number 34, ordinance amending zoning code use table for neighborhood retail.
Second to commit, Mr. President.
No one's opposed. It's in committee.
I'd like to make a motion to commit ordinance number 35, ordinance amending zoning code use table for smoke shops.
Second to commit, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to commit ordinance number 36, ordinance amending section 214341 of the Utica City Code of Ordinances.
Second to commit, Mr. President.
Opposed. It's in committee. All right. Done with those.
Good
Okay.
job, thanks.
I've got nothing else on my table here except for,
I always knew fast talking would come in handy.
we had the public hearing, so I must call, the recognition that we do have the annual estimate. Are we,
Oh, yeah. Well, I'd
Well-
like to make a different one. You want?
you want a different motion. All right, so we're not dealing with anything with that. That's great. Fine. All right, yes, you have the floor.
I'd like to make a motion to discharge from committee ordinance 16, rescind and replace designation of official newspaper.
Ah, the old one. Yes, is there a second? There's a second. Any opposed to that discharge? Okay. Anything else?
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn, please.
Okay, I'll see everyone Monday. Otherwise, we're defaulting on a budget. 5 o'clock, I'm gonna call it. Yeah, 5 o'clock. Should be quick.
Hold up one second.